Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Cleveland Browns at the Kansas City Chiefs in their Week 16 matchup played December 27, 2015. And we're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. And the Chiefs were looking to win their 9th straight, and they could clinch a playoff spot with a win and a Pittsburgh loss. And they still are alive in the West if they could win out and the Broncos lose out. So to start this game off, the Chiefs would get the ball first, and they would start off with it on their own 35. They would get into Cleveland territory down into the red zone, and on 2nd and 10 from the 11, Alex Smith hit Jeremy Maclin for the 11-yard touchdown. Cairo Santos added the extra point, and it was 7-0 Kansas City over Cleveland with less than 8 minutes still left in the first quarter. The Browns would be held to a 3-and-out on their first possession, and now Kansas City would take over after the punt on their own 40. They wasted no time getting into Cleveland territory, but their drive would stall at the 21, and out would come Cairo Santos to kick a 40-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and it was 10-0 Kansas City over Cleveland with just over 2 minutes still left in the first. So now the Browns would get the ball and they would bring the first quarter to a close, but they would end up punting on the first play of the second quarter as they punted after 4 plays on the possession. The Chiefs would then be held to a 3-and-out on their next possession, and now Cleveland would take over on their own 44 after the punt. They got into Kansas City territory, but their drive would stall at the 27, and out would come Travis Coons to hit a 45-yard field goal to put the Browns' first points on the scoreboard as they cut the Chiefs' lead to 7 with the score Kansas City 10, Cleveland 3 with just under 9 minutes left before halftime. So now the Chiefs would get the ball on their own 18, and they got into Cleveland territory pretty quickly, but then on 3rd and 2 from the 22, Alex Smith was intercepted by Nate Orchard, and so now the Browns would take over at the Kansas City 41, but 2 plays later, Johnny Manziel hit Gary Barnidge, but there was Marcus Peters, and he picks off Manziel, and so now the Chiefs would take over. So one interception deserves another. As they say, one good turn deserves another, but back-to-back pickoffs, and now the Chiefs would take over, but they would go 3-and-out on the possession that followed. The Browns would go 3-and-out as well on their next possession, and now Kansas City would take over with about a minute and a half left before halftime with the ball on their own 44, and Alex Smith scrambled for 29 yards all the way to the Cleveland 27. Then on 3rd and 7 from the 24, Alex Smith hit Travis Kelce for an 11-yard reception that made a first down in the red zone at the Cleveland 13, and Alex Smith goes back to Kelce, this time for the touchdown, a 13-yard touchdown, and with the extra point by Cairo Santos, it was now 17-3, Chiefs over the Browns with half a minute left before halftime. Cleveland would then get the ball on their own 20. They still had some time on the clock, and they still had a couple of timeouts. And on 2nd and 10 from the 20, Johnny Manziel went to Gary Barnidge. He picked up 24 yards and a first down at the Cleveland 44. Manziel then scrambled 23 yards all the way to the Kansas City 33, and the Browns took their last timeout with just 2 seconds left on the clock, and out came Travis Coons to attempt a 51-yard field goal, but it was blocked. Sorensen got a hand on it, and so the Browns failed to put 3 on the board before halftime, so it would be 17-3 at intermission. So now Cleveland would get the ball first in the second half, and on their first play of the first possession of the third quarter, Johnny Manziel ends up running 34 yards for a first down into Kansas City territory at the 48, and they ended up then getting into the red zone a few plays later. And on 2nd and 1 from the 16, Crowell runs 6 yards for the first down. They made it 1st and goal at the 10. They give it back to Crowell, and he scores a 10-yard touchdown. Travis Coons adds the extra point, and all of a sudden it was a one-score game with the score Kansas City 17, Cleveland 10, with just over 9 minutes still left in the third. Kansas City would end up punting after 6 plays on their next possession, and now the Browns would take over with 5.5 left in the third, the ball on their own 20. They would get pushed back by a penalty, a false start, pushed them back to the 15, but then they started moving the ball, and they got up to midfield, and they brought the third quarter to a close, and they opened up the fourth quarter, and they would get all the way down into the red zone, but they were not able to get it into the end zone. And although they ran a lot of clock off of the fourth quarter, they would end up having to settle for a 36-yard field goal by Travis Coons with about 8.5 still left to play, and that made it a 4-point game with the score Kansas City 17, Cleveland 13. So the Chiefs would end up punting after 5 plays on their next possession, and now Cleveland would take over down by 4 with 5.5 left on the clock and the ball at midfield at their own 42. And they would get into Kansas City territory, but then on 3rd and 8 from the 30, an incomplete pass would bring up 4th down, and another incomplete pass would turn the ball over on downs. And so now the big stop by the Chiefs would give them the ball on their own 30 with less than 3 minutes left to play. And they would just go to try to run out the clock. They would bring it to the 2-minute warning, and coming out of the 2-minute warning, they would punt the ball back to Cleveland. And so now the Browns would have another chance with less than 2 minutes left to play. But they did not have any timeouts. Down by 4 with the ball on their own 30. Manziel went to Jennings. He picked up 15 yards and a first down at the 45. Then on 2nd and 10, he scrambled for 11 and a first down at the Kansas City 44. And on 3rd and 10, Manziel hit Barnridge for a 12-yard reception at the 32. He spiked the ball to stop the clock. Then an incomplete pass on 2nd down, an incomplete pass on 3rd down. And now on 4th down, 4th and 10 from the 32, Manziel hits Jennings for a first down, a 14-yard reception, and that would bring the ball to the 18. They're in the red zone with just seconds left on the clock. There was 9 seconds when he caught the ball. They tried to rush up to the line, but the time would run out, and time expires with the Browns in the red zone. But without the timeouts, they weren't able to stop the clock, and down by 4, needing a touchdown, they would come away with no points on the drive, and Kansas City holds on to win this one 17-13. And the Chiefs' victory, coupled with the Steelers' loss to Baltimore at the same time, gets the Chiefs a playoff berth. So the Chiefs clinch a playoff spot with the win and the Steelers loss. They're now 10-5 on the season, 5-2 at home. They'll be finishing up at home against the Raiders. And if the Broncos lose their last 2 games, and of course they face Cincinnati on Monday night, and then next week, if they lose those 2 games, the Chiefs could still potentially take the West. But they started off 1-5. They won 9 in a row, and now they're going to the playoffs. The Browns 3-12. They're 1-7 on the road on the season. In Kansas City, they were in control early on. It looked like it was all Chiefs, 17-3 at halftime. But the Browns battled back. Of course, their defense shut down Kansas City in the second half. But Kansas City's defense came up with the plays that they needed to. And when it mattered the most, and maybe they bent a little bit, but they didn't break, and they come away with the W. And in this game, Alex Smith, 15 for 22, 125 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Jacandrick West, 14 carries for 62 yards. Alex Smith also had 6 carries for 54 yards rushing. And Jeremy Maclin, 5 receptions for 49 yards and a touchdown. Travis Kelce, 6 receptions for 43 yards and a touchdown. And for the Browns, Johnny Manziel, 13 for 32, 136 passing yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. He had 11 carries for 108 rushing yards on the day for Johnny Football. Isaiah Crowell had 16 carries for 88 yards and a rushing touchdown. And Gary Barnridge, 3 receptions for 47 yards. Jennings had 3 receptions for 37 yards. And for the kickers in this game, Cairo Santos was perfect, 1 for 1 on the field goals, 2 for 2 on the extra points. Travis Coons, 2 for 3 on the field goals, 1 for 1 on the extra points. And for the defense for Kansas City, Marcus Peters gets his 8th interception of the year. He's tied for first interceptions, as he's definitely making a strong case for Defensive Rookie of the Year, the first-round pick by the Chiefs. And for the Browns, Nate Orchard had a sack and an interception, the rookie for Cleveland. And so then we look at the team stats in this game. First downs, 21 for the Browns, 16 for the Chiefs. On third down, Cleveland 6 of 15, 40% conversion rate. They went for it 4 times on fourth down. They converted 3 for 75% on fourth down for Cleveland. And for Kansas City, 4 for 12 on third down, a 33% conversion rate. They went for it once on fourth, and they did convert for 100%. In total net yards in this game, 368 for Cleveland, 258 for Kansas City. On the ground, the Browns netted 232. Of course, a lot of that was Johnny Manziel, almost half of that. And then 136 netted for Kansas City on the ground. And through the air, the Browns netted 136 and Kansas City 122. Alex Smith was sacked once for a loss of 3 yards. Johnny Football was not sacked at all. We look at the penalties in this game. Penalties cost Cleveland 8 penalties, 83 penalty yards. 5 penalties against Kansas City for 33 penalty yards. No fumbles for the Browns. 1 fumble for Kansas City, but they recovered their own fumble. Then in the red zone, Kansas City 2 for 2, 100%. 1 for 2 for Cleveland, 50% in the red zone. Time of possession, 31 minutes and 4 seconds for Cleveland, 28 minutes, 56 seconds for Kansas City. So this game was almost like 2 different games. In the first half, it was all Kansas City. They dominated the first half. Then in the second half, the Browns fought back, and they just ran out of time at the end there. Of course, Kansas City playing a very good game defensively throughout, although the offense kind of seemed to sputter somewhat in the second half as they didn't get any points on the board, as the Browns defense really clamped down and made those halftime adjustments. And really, Kansas City, not a lot of plays in this game. That was the thing, too, is that the Browns put together some long drives in the second half as they stayed on the field. They kept the Chiefs' defense on the field, but those long drives only resulted in 10 total points. And, of course, that huge long drive that ended the third and opened up the fourth, and they ended up coming away with just a field goal on that drive, and that was the only points they'd score in the fourth quarter. Of course, they got down all the way into the red zone as the time expired, but they ran out of timeouts. And that's somewhat, been the story with Cleveland, is they seem to struggle when it comes to clock management. Of course, that's the coaching staff there and their play calling, the way they manage the clock. But Kansas City, though, coming up with the big defensive stops and the big defensive plays throughout the game, and especially when they needed it the most. And they continue to get in the win column. That's their 9th win in a row. They're the hottest team right now in all of football, especially with the Panthers having lost. And Kansas City, if they can keep this going and keep this momentum and ride it into the postseason, this is when we see teams that, when you get hot at the right time and down the stretch and through the second half and go into the playoffs with a winning streak. I mean, they win next week, that'll be 10 games in a row going into the playoffs. You can't count the Chiefs out. They are a team to be reckoned with. They're red hot. And if they can keep this going, then who's going to stop them? It's going to definitely be interesting to watch the playoffs for sure and to see what they can do, especially with that defense. And if their offense, they don't score a lot of points, but they get the job done, they get enough points on the board. And with their defense holding the Browns to just 13, they get the win. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and having a great weekend and enjoying all the sports.